Welcome to Squeaky Real Fringe. At this time, please turn off all phones and electronics. Please, no photography or recording during the performance. We ask that you keep your hearts and minds inside the theater at all times and enjoy the show.
Before we start, I want you all to know that everything you hear this afternoon is true. These are things that I or friends of mine with disabilities have experienced. Also, this performance is dedicated to my father who passed away in 2020, Rebecca Franklin, who helped me write the Disability Diaries and passed away in 2021, and my mom, who is in the audience this afternoon. Hi, I'm not like most of you. You see, I was in and out of hospitals for the entirety of my childhood. When I was 6 months old, I needed surgery to fix a relatively rare birth defect involving my heart. The prognosis was good, and the operation was expected to be completed without a hitch. That didn't happen, though. A mistake was made, and then another mistake was made after the first one. By the time the surgery was over, I wasn't the same boy I had been the day before. I had lost a lot of blood. I was unable to move my legs, and doctors weren't sure if I'd even live to see the next day. This song isn't about that hospital stay because I don't remember it at all. I was too young, of course. This song is about a different time in the hospital. It is about the first time that I was aware of what being in the hospital meant. The first time that I was really aware. I'm a little scared now, for the first time, he said as he walked through the doors of his tiny hospital room. We won't leave, his mom and dad said softly. His sister came and brought a bunch of cards from the kids at school. Why does he have to go through all this? Is there a reason for this fight? How can this be a part of your plan? It's almost a shame he put up a fight. Everyone would come to see the poor kid. They didn't know what it was like to lie in bed so alone. G.I. Joes and Lego sets were given for him to play with an accident. Oh no, a broken bone. I can't believe you ignored all my prayers. I guess there's nothing else to say now. But if it were me, I'd have done everything I could to help him, to help him. Why does he have to go through all this? Is there a reason for this fight? How can this be a part of your plan? It's almost a shame he put up a fight. Can you imagine me without my wheelchair? Can you imagine me without this scar?
Can you imagine me not using sign language?
Can you imagine me without using this cane? Can you imagine me without all these braces?
You might not be able to imagine us without those things, but I'll tell you who can. Our parents. Many of our parents can imagine us without those things because many of us were not born disabled. Some of us were, yes, but there are a great many of us who were disabled at some time after birth.
The fact is, I wasn't born with my wheelchair. When I first arrived on this planet, my parents had no idea I would end up using one of these things nearly every day of my life. When a woman finds out she is pregnant, she never thinks to herself, my child is going to have a disability. It must be quite jarring for parents when it is known that their child is going to deal with some type of handicap during their life.
Anyway, we start out by discussing what it's like going into the hospital for the first time. Now, if you've never been to the hospital for anything more than an outpatient procedure, you wouldn't know, but the first thing you think of when you've been in the hospital for more than a day is, what am I getting out of here? There's only so much I can do. What am I getting out of here? I've seen this episode 10 times. How often can I play this same Metroid game? How often can I look out the window and count down the rain until my comes once more? I listen again to you, my roommates start to snore. Time just drags on by, and I begin to cry. What am I getting out of here? There's only so much I can do. What am I getting out of here? I've seen this church episode 10 times. Hey, the Freddie Rocker, I really love your show. But you know that it'd be fucking great if there was somewhere else I could go. Somewhere outside instead. Somewhere out of this hospital bed. It's a goddamn bore. And they wake me every morning at 4. The clock ticks so slowly. Life keeps passing me by. Forever in school and I'm lonely. The world awaits outside. When am I getting out of here? There's only so much I can do. When am I getting out of here? I've seen this Friends episode 10 times. I've seen it 10 times.
I cannot heal myself of my disability in my dreams because I instinctively know I will be insane. Deafness is my norm since birth. There are some hints on how I get by on a daily basis. I rely a lot on facial expressions and surroundings. In the next song, the phrases eyes they signal me and hands they vibrate me are meant to convey those ideas. Additionally, the phrase the mute button stuck is meant to express that hearing people may feel it is a great disaster when they can't hear a TV show or a movie with the sound on. This is a standard feeling for me as a deaf person, and I'm used to watching things without knowing what's going on many times. Subtitles and closed captionings are huge deals to me, and they open up the world for me. Having them available is akin to a person who can hear simply by putting the sound on.
Too softly, I cannot hear. Lips that seem to move, nothing comes out. Eyes, they signal me all that it took. It's just me, although this is a dream. It's just me. Eerily quiet, can you hear me? Ears that don't work, hollowly in and out. Hands that vibrate me, absorbing everything. It's just me, although this is a dream. It's just me. Uh-oh, that's how it is. Yeah, quite deftly, did you hear that? 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 Without sound, dreaming it away, above the ground, away from reality. The mute button stuck, your great disaster. You might be stuck, uh-oh, that's how it is.
This next piece was written from the perspective of a devotee. For those of you who are unaware, a devotee is someone who is attracted to disabilities. Most often the attraction is sexual, but sometimes it can be emotional, or both sexual and emotional. Sometimes it's another type of attraction that I honestly can't explain, and quite frankly, neither can they.
Some devotees are nice, some of them aren't. This song is about the ones that aren't. The music is intentionally dissonant at points, and the lyrics include mostly things that many of us have been told by our devotees.
Hey, you're cute. I really like you. Saw you out there, sitting in your wheelchair. You show me your dead legs and hold them so sexy and hot. I'm glad they didn't grow.
Again, please accept me as friend. Give me what I ask. Though I do not like to ask. I did things of you I know you can't do. If you don't give them to me, I surely sue. Dead legs, crawl on me.
are hot and sexy. I've been called polio leg boy. I've been called a freak. I've frequently received requests to do things that the requester knows I can't do. For example, to walk with crutches but without braces, which would cause me to fall instantly. The reason for this is that many devs, as they are called for short, get off on the struggle. They want to see disabled people try and fail to do things that able-bodied people are capable of. I often get requests for pictures and videos of my feet and legs, and on one occasion when I refused, the person told me that he was going to sue me. I even had a girlfriend's life threatened because the devotee felt that said girlfriend presented an obstacle in the way of being with me.
Essentially, to them, we're just pieces of meat that exist solely for their pleasure and entertainment.
I should note that there are many kinds of devotees. There are wheelchair devotees, braces and crutches devotees, who often have a slight bondage fetish, prosthesis devs, and amputee devs, which are the most common. As a matter of fact, there are even some that find the idea of amputation so desirable that they have healthy limbs removed, if they can find a doctor who's willing to do that for them. And some who are unable to find such a doctor take matters into their own hands and amputate their own legs, arms, fingers, or toes. These people are typically called wannabes. They are different from, but ultimately similar to devotees.
Now, you may or may not be surprised to hear there's another group of people who are often associated with devotees and wannabes. These people pretend to have a specific disability, and they are fittingly called pretenders. Wheelchair pretenders, for example, will buy a wheelchair to use for their daily life, even though they have no medical reason for needing one. Braces pretenders will buy or make their own braces to wear, again, despite not actually needing them.
The next song is about a strange phenomenon called inspiration porn. There is no one definitive definition of inspiration porn, but generally it's thought as the portrayal of people with disabilities as inspirational, simply because of their disability.
One time I was out eating lunch at a restaurant and someone came to me and said, "Oh wow, this is amazing! You, out on your own, eating at a restaurant. God bless you." Then the person shed some tears, apparently from being so moved by me being out at a restaurant. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do. Eating is something that everyone needs to do in order to survive. It certainly isn't amazing, wonderful, stupendous, or anything like that at all, really. It's just something I do. I make my bed in the morning, I go grocery shopping, I do laundry, I drive. Those are things that almost everyone else does, but because I have a disability, I've been praised for doing each of them and other mundane things as well. People see me to say what I'm doing is great. It's something that I really hate, cause it's just another day for me. People give me awards that I don't deserve. It really gets on my nerves. I'm just inspiration porn to them. All they see is my disability, something for them to look at and feel good about. When I think about it, I just want to shout. Inspiration porn, inspiration porn, that's all I am to you. Inspiration porn, please get a fucking clue. People see me just at the grocery store. To me it's such a chore. It's just something that I have to do. But to them it is so damn spectacular. To use the vernacular, I like to hit them with my shoe. All they see is my disability, something for them to look at and feel good about. When I think about it, I just want to shout. Inspiration porn, that's all I am to you. considered inspirational for doing simple, everyday tasks is not the only problem with how many people view us.
That's right. Part of the issue is that we're often expected to be sources of constant inspiration. We have this pressure placed on us by society to also always persevere no matter what. Well, I've got some news for you. We aren't always happy. We don't always feel great. We aren't always strong. Some days we feel frustrated, humiliated, or simply sick and tired. On days like that, we don't want to give you a pep talk or show you how great life is. Some days we want to cry, or to be as weak as our bodies and collapse into a funk that no one would misinterpret as inspiration. We should be able to do so without worrying that someone will see the truth and somehow be less inspired.
I'm going to talk a bit about a group of people that are, in a way, the opposite of those who get off on inspiration porn. These are the ones that park in handicapped spots or access aisles. These are the ones that use the handicapped stall in a restroom when there are other normal stalls that are not being used. These are the ones that, at best, have no regard for those with disabilities and, at worst, have contempt for them.
Well, if any of you are out here tonight, I got some news for you fuckers. It isn't okay to use a handicap stall because you feel uncomfortable about taking a piss in a urinal. It isn't okay to use a handicap stall to change clothes.
It isn't okay to use a handicapped stall to smoke a cigarette, play a game on your phone, or just because it's so much roomier than the regular stalls.
It isn't okay to park in a handicapped space or access aisle for even 1 second. So get out of my parking space, bitch. Hey there, watch out. Can't you see me? Maybe you can, and that's a problem. Please don't park there. I need the extra space to get my shirt out of my car now. I wouldn't park there unless I absolutely had to. The really cold is a mess. My hips are changing for hours. Don't you know you're hurting more than one? Wait to wait until your errand's done. In 1 minute is too long to stay. No, you can't come late or karma will repay you. Oh no, again, can't believe I have to pee, but this is all so bad. What now? Can't stand your rehearsal for 3 nights and you said, well, I'm fixing. I use rigor saw, but even that's not open. You think a shopping mall would have more than one accessible restroom. Don't you know you're hurting more than one? No need to wait until your errand's done. Even 1 minute is too long to stay. No, you can't come late, or karma will repay you.
I'll elaborate a bit on some of the lyrics in that song. The line, "The rain and cold is a mess. My hands stay frozen for hours," might be a bit confusing for all of you out there, but the fact is, When able-bodied people go out and do their errands during the winter, their extremities warm up fairly soon after they get into a warm building. This is not so much for us manual wheelchair users.
The hand grips on our wheels are most often made of some type of metal. When metals get cold, they tend to stay cold for a very, very long time. Because of that, the onset of winter can mean having cold hands all day for several months at a time.
Prolonged frosty hands can even happen in warmer months. Thank you to the miracle of air conditioning. Now, granted, having the AC on when it's sweltering outside is nice, but it can make our wheels feel cold and therefore give us cold hands. Another situation where it can happen, regardless of the time of year, is at a grocery store in the frozen food section. Being in one of those aisles for 15 to 20 seconds can cause cold fingers. It's a situation that's very often unavoidable.
All right. So, you're wondering why it isn't okay to do things we just talked and sang about.
Well, handicap spots are there for a reason. And the reason is not so that able-bodied people can park up front if they're in a hurry. Most handicap spots have wider than normal standard spots, not because we like wide spots or we're bad at parking, but because we need that space to get our wheelchairs in and out of our vehicles. Now, we don't want to bump or scratch the car next to us, but we will. If they're too close and we have no other way to get into or out of our car. Sorry, not sorry. Loading bags in the car from a seated position can also require extra room for wheelchair users.
Another thing to remember is that many people with handicap plates or play cards can still walk, but only for short distances. Try not to judge anyone with a permit. The reasons they might have it might not be visible. For example, I can walk most of the time, but there are days when my body makes that too difficult. On those days, I use a wheelchair as a mobility aid.
As for restrooms, ever wonder why the handicap stall is so big? It's because wheelchair users need to be able to get in and still be able to shut and lock the stall door. Now, most of us have suffered the frustration of accessible stalls, which aren't actually big enough for us to shut the door behind our chair. Privacy is privilege we don't actually get enough of, so when you take the only stall we can actually fit in, it's annoying to say the least. I understand you might not like the cramped quarters of a regular stall, especially if you're taking a shit, but we can only literally fit in the big ones no matter what we're in there for.
Some of us have catheters, disposable underwear, or other medical necessities that make the additional room vital. Also, we actually need the grab bars, the raised toilets, and other accommodations a handicap stall provides. So the next time you're tempted, please sacrifice your personal comfort for the possibility of someone else's necessity and use a different stall.
P.S. If we aren't able to close the stall door, we might still use the toilet. Just remember, an open stall door doesn't give you the right to stare at us while we do our business. Some people will do just that, though, and if they do, I like to stare right back at them and see how uncomfortable I can make them feel. You gotta have a little fun, right?
Another thing, have you ever noticed that baby changing stations are nearly always in wheelchair accessible stalls and restrooms? First of all, it's ableist to have restrooms designed that way. There should be a separate place for the baby changing table. Second, have you ever seen a baby changing station that actually worked? I haven't. Every time I've seen someone go into a restroom with their baby, they come out again with the same baby. No change whatsoever. I'm not sure if the parents are supposed to come out with a different kid, or the babies are supposed to change into puppies, dragons, or unicorns. But just from the name alone, I always assumed that a baby changing station was supposed to do the same thing as the transmogrifier from those old Calvin and Hobbes comic strips. I digress. Let me move on to something else. Dating is tough for everyone, but it can be excruciatingly difficult for those with disabilities. First, you have to deal with the assumptions and stigmas that prospective partners have. I've been asked, can you have sex? The answer to that is yes, but I rarely have orgasms. I'm told that is quite unusual for a man, but I wouldn't really know since I have no pre-injury experience in that area. Regardless, one time when I explained that to someone who was interested in me, the person asked, what's the point of sex if you don't have an orgasm? That made me feel fucking fantastic, as I'm sure you can imagine.
That's a great point. There are also preconceptions that family members tend to have. Not our family members, mind you, but the siblings, parents, and grandparents of potential partners. I've been asked, how will you make a living and support my sister? You're deaf.
I feel you there. I was in a relationship with someone and her mom told me that she thought her daughter's life would be easier without me in it. It's as if people think we're all shut-ins who would only be burdens on significant others, or that we're all incapable of holding jobs or having careers.
Right? I'm a teacher. I love my job and my students. I like to think that I'm really good at what I do. My employer and plenty of parents seem to agree with that sentiment.
I'm also a teacher, and ditto, ditto, ditto.
Look, I'm an IT professional, and the company I work for loves me. I mean, they're honestly scared to lose me as an employee. I mean, that's a great feeling. I mean, being wanted instead of shunned. I also developed smartphone apps on the side, but don't tell the company I work for.
I worked for FEMA for a while, but now I work for the IRS.
Oh.
Don't hate me too much.
I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm mainly a musician and actor, but I also make motivational and educational YouTube videos that have helped tens of thousands of people in countries around the world. Additionally, I buy and sell sports cards, I invest in stocks and cryptocurrencies, and I'm a published author.
Some of us may not have jobs, but don't assume we don't want jobs. That's because we don't get to work. Many of us want to work, but can't get hired because of discrimination against those with disabilities. Thankfully, the internet has provided numerous ways for us to have careers without having to worry about the need of being hired, so we get to be our own bosses.
The assumption that we can't possibly provide a good life for a potential significant other is not the only problem when it comes to dating and relationships, though. There's the fact that very often when out on a date, people assume that my date is my sister, my cousin, or some other family relation rather than a romantic partner. Talk about awkward.
Tell me about it. People just do not see those of us with disabilities as desiring or even being capable of it.
May not have been so fortunate to have been normal right out of the gate, but the doubt is all yours to make. Superficial dreaming, you're not awake. You can't understand, can't know my fate. Disability's not my only trait. I'll show you the real while you fake. Pressured like a diamond, too much to take. Please keep in mind, it's all love. Before you decide, love is love. Let me remind, it's all love. Nowhere to hide, love is love is love. Love is love is love. Somebody's mama got mad. Family drama ain't so right. I've been had and I've been back. You might think it's your luck.
I don't want no pity fuck, it's kind of fun. It doesn't suck, no shitty luck, no pity fuck.
I got the picture of this damn bitch, raging without a stitch. I am a wild pitch, I got the itch to say that I'm rich.
She said I won't get far, I'll show her that I'm a star. To her I look so bizarre, ableism is in my heart.
For the cause. there's always love.
But then, you finally do find someone who wants a relationship with you and everything is great. For a while, anyway. She starts to pick on things about your disability. She says things like,
Ugh, you can't even carry my luggage for me.
Or,
I don't think you really have a kidney infection. I think you just don't want to come see me.
Even though you just got out of the hospital a couple of days earlier and can barely eat or even get out of bed. It is impossible for an able-bodied person to understand what life is like for someone with a disability. I don't care if you are the doctor, best friend, sibling, parent, child, or lover of a person with a disability, you just can't fathom what we go through. It isn't your fault, though. You can't be expected to comprehend something that you haven't experienced. The fact is that because of this gap in understanding, things fall apart. Relationships fall apart. Don't stop now, it hurts so bad. There was a time when you were in love with me. Now that's gone and all that's left is misery. What happened to us, my darling? What happened to us, my darling? Things were great in the beginning. You didn't know who I was. You loved the person that you wanted me to be. Now it seems like we were just some parody of a storybook romance. Now there's really no chance for love in my life. A friend's all I can ever be. I'm sorry you thought you loved me. Our time is just an illusion. We're both denied our true selves. Face it, honey, none of it matters anymore. With you I'd never be standing at the stage door. To the fear of my joy, I won't be your whipping boy anymore. For anyone, I'm sorry you thought you loved me. Don't stop now, it hurts so bad. There was a time when you were in love with me. Now that's gone and all that's left is misery. What happened to us, my darling? What happened to us, my darling? Ever be. I'm sorry you thought you loved me.
yeah, that's true. Things do fall apart sometimes. Sometimes they fall apart slowly, and other times they just blindside you. Days after my accident that caused my spinal cord injury, my wife was with me in the hospital, and she took one look at me and said,
I didn't sign up for this.
and then she left. I got the divorce papers shortly after that. So much for in sickness and in health, huh?
Depression is something that nearly everyone goes through at some point in their lives. Some people go through it more often than others, and some never really overcome it. People with disabilities tend to go through bouts of depression more than those without disabilities.
Most of the time I'm in good spirits. I joke around a lot, I laugh a lot, and I smile a lot. Because I'm usually in a good mood, people often assume that I'm always happy. That isn't the case, though. I've had periods of depression in the past, and I'm fairly sure that I will have more in the future. Thankfully, I usually bounce back quickly, and whatever has me down rarely keeps me down for too long. This song, however, was inspired by one specific time when I didn't bounce back as quickly as I normally do. I wallowed for a long time. The prolonged funk wasn't specifically because of my disability, but more because of things that happened as side effects of my injury. I was talking to a friend of mine, and at the end of the conversation he said, "I'll talk to you soon. Don't do something stupid." Those words stuck with me, and I decided to write a song about the experience and my feelings regarding it. No one else is around. I remember you. Shadows are all that fill my mind. Am I the victim of something meant to be? Or was I the cause of everything? Don't do something stupid. The words are in my mind. I don't remember the rest that was said. Just don't do something stupid. It happens time and time again. It won't hurt you. It helps you more than you could know. Everything passes, everything stays the same. At least I won't have to deal with it then. Don't do something stupid. The words are in my mind. I don't remember the rest that was said. Just don't do stupid. Just don't do something. Just don't do something stupid.
We kind of glossed over it before when we were talking about romance and relationships, but sex is something that goes along with those things. Contrary to popular belief, most people with disabilities enjoy sex. Some of us are even flat out uber-pervs.
We aren't going to talk about those people, though.
Not that there's anything wrong with them.
No, of course not. What consenting adults do in the privacy of their own bedroom or their kitchen is their own business. That said, many able-bodied people have lots of different misconceptions about disabilities and sex. Many think that disabled people can't have sex. Others think that disabled people don't want to have sex. Some even think that those with disabilities would enjoy sex, or that they aren't worthy of having sex. It's unfortunate, but disabled people like us fight an uphill battle in terms of almost everything in life. I can't speak for everybody, but I know just based on personal experiences and stuff that I've read, that sex is absolutely possible for a lot of us. It may be different in most people, think how sex is, but it's still enjoyable. There's still intimacy. There's still heat. There's still passion.
Another thing that able-bodied people often do not realize about having a disability is the added cost of living. We visit doctors more often and have more medical tests done than the average person. We take more medication than most people, and many of us require a lot of specialized equipment as well. The seat cushion for my wheelchair costs $400, and it only lasts about a year or so before it needs to be replaced.
Wheelchair vans can cost more than twice as much as regular vans, and because there are extra parts, there are more repair costs associated with them than with normal vehicles.
We're already talking about tens of thousands of dollars in extra bills to pay, and that's just scratching the surface. A hand bike for exercising will set you back about $2,000 at the very least. That's just the bare bones model, no frills. Custom manual wheelchairs, they go for a minimum of $5,000. Then the average power chair is going to run you around $8,000, and for the higher end models, you're looking at approximately $20,000.
Medications, surgeries, and medical tests, and various other expenses add up quickly. They make our lives much more expensive than the average person. But on a positive note, we have loyalty punch cards, and after 9 surgeries, the 10th one's free.
There is so much more that we'd like to tell you. There's so much more that we'd like you to understand about our lives and disabilities in general. Yet, we don't want to bore you, so we'll try to be as quick about it as we can, and we'll just hit the most glaring issues.
You know how a lot of people say, oh, that is so lame, to mean something was bad or boring. Well, that's ableist language, and it's insulting to people with disabilities. The actual meaning of lame is unable to walk because of an injury to a leg or a foot. By saying that something is bad, is lame, you're actually saying that disabled people were bad. And I don't think that most of you would actually want to be saying that.
Additionally, we are not strapped, glued, chained, nailed, or stapled into our chairs. So saying that we are in a wheelchair is inaccurate. We are not in a wheelchair. We are not wheelchair bound. We are wheelchair users. We transfer in and out of them when needed. We transfer to toilets, beds, couches, vehicles, and various other places and things. More importantly than that, don't think that our wheelchairs or other mobility aids limit us. They don't. They give us freedom. They enhance our lives. They allow us to experience a world that we would not be able to if they did not exist.
There's something else you should know. Those of us with what are known as invisible disabilities often face an incredibly difficult struggle in terms of finding competent medical care. Frequently, many of us are greeted by skepticism or even hostility by the doctors who are supposed to be helping us. Everyone knows what paraplegia is, but some of us have disabilities which are caused by ailments which are far more obscure. It is unfortunate. Many doctors are not willing to admit that they do not have necessary knowledge to deal with such issues. I don't expect every doctor to know everything about everything, but I do expect that they know their limitations and either be willing to do research on a particular subject they don't understand or refer us to someone who can give us the medical care we need.
Moving on, have you ever been in a restroom that has a freestanding toilet paper holder? Yeah, by that I mean a dispenser that's not attached to the wall. I'm sure you're thinking, how could that possibly pose a problem for anyone? Well, maybe you weren't thinking that, but I'll tell you anyway. The force needed to break off pieces of toilet paper from a freestanding holder is so great that often one of two things happens. Either the entire toilet paper roll comes off of the dispenser, or the dispenser itself falls. Sometimes it falls and the roll comes off.
Now, the simple solution is that you have one hand to hold the paper, and you use the other hand to rip it off. Now, unfortunately, many wheelchair users cannot do that. We need to support ourselves with one hand and grab the toilet paper with the other hand. Now, that leaves us with minus one extra hand.
Bath mats and rugs in general can be quite problematic for us as well. Smaller rugs and bath mats have a tendency to get caught in our wheels, and larger, thick rugs or carpeting can slow us down considerably.
And here's something else. You ever notice how the windows for bank tellers are extremely high? And it's like they don't want our business. What's up with that? Thank God for Bitcoin.
Another thing you should know is that we're often funny. We like to joke around and laugh a lot. And why shouldn't we? As the old saying goes, laughter is the best medicine.
Hey, so how much do you think I need to laugh before I regain the use of my legs? Our jokes often have to do with our disabilities, and it's okay to laugh at them.
That's so true. We are funny, creative, intelligent, passionate, and interesting people, if you take the chance to get to know us. One thing for sure, we are not our disabilities. Using a wheelchair can make us feel both invisible and infamous. Sometimes it seems that people do not see us at all. They just see the disability and ignore or avoid the person inside. Other times, we stick out like a sore thumb.
It's a curious phenomenon. People often assume lots of different things about us, and those assumptions are rarely, if ever, correct. Sometimes it's a waitress asking my friend what I want to eat. Other times it's a hotel clerk talking only to my girlfriend when I'm the one checking in. If someone has a question, concern, or some other pertinent matter to discuss that directly involves us, the best thing to do is talk with us about it, not someone else.
Seriously, once when I was getting on a plane, the airline steward said to my friend, who I was traveling with, "Is he able to get out of the wheelchair and into a regular seat?" My friend just said, "Why don't you ask him?" That steward looked so confused, poor guy.
You know what confuses them even more than that? When we travel alone.
Oh, yeah.
You should see the looks on their faces. Like, oh my God, how can this person travel alone? They are in a wheelchair, for God's sake.
I mentioned before that I'm an actor. Here's an unfortunate circumstance that happened after an audition. I was up for a specific role with two other people. The other actors and I were told to wait in a room while the director and had a discussion with the production staff. But they had the discussion in the same room behind a curtain. I overheard the director say, "Well, other than the wheelchair, he's a fine actor." If someone's willing to say that within earshot, I wonder what they or other directors might say when I'm not around.
What a lot of people don't realize is that they could be wheelchair users in the blink of an eye. A car crash, a fall from a skateboard, a skiing accident, any number of things that you probably would never think of could put you in our position. And never mind wheelchairs for a second. You probably know about the risk of getting shingles if you've ever had chicken pox. But maybe you didn't know that if you get shingles in your eyes, it can cause permanent blindness.
So, that's everything. Or is it? We've covered a lot of information, but so much more we haven't discussed. But before we say anything else, we would like to thank you for coming out today and seeing this show. And by doing so, you've taken the first step to understanding a bit more about disabilities and the people who have them.
Indeed. Thank you so much for coming. Now, we have one request for you. If you see a wheelchair user or someone using sign language, perhaps someone with a disability that we haven't talked about, don't be afraid to talk with them. Don't be afraid to ask them about their day or to tell them the funniest joke you know.
And don't be afraid to ask us what time it is, or if we've seen the last Survivor episode, or maybe even fall in love with us.
Don't be afraid to expand on what you've seen and heard here by doing a little research on your own. Remember that we've only touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of disabilities. There are so many others out there, and a little knowledge goes a long way to increased understanding and compassion.
Don't be afraid to make friends with me, even though we might have a little trouble communicating. By the way, texting doesn't require any hearing or speech, so there's always that.
And please, for those of us who use manual wheelchairs, whatever you do, please don't push us without asking first. We hate that, and it can be dangerous for us and for you.
Amen to that. Once again, thank you for coming. Hopefully, we've enlightened you and entertained you at the same time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. We hope you realize you and I aren't so different. It really takes all of us to make this world go round. We're thankful for the new friends we found. Thank you for coming. Thank you for laughing. We've been so happy to tell you what's happening. In this world of ours, that's filled with disabilities, we're really not so different. You and me, you and me. It probably wasn't easy hearing all of this. Difficulties and malpractice are topics you might have wanted us to share, but we couldn't, it's true. If we did, we'd be doing a disservice to you. So, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. We hope you realize you and I aren't so different. It really takes all of us to make this world go round. We're thankful for the new friends we found. In this world of ours that's filled with disabilities, we're really not so